there's something I want to tackle. There's a real issue that we have to acknowledge before we move on to how we can develop and how we can use a spiritual science as it is. Our problem is that we live our lives surrounded by things which are artificial. Our light, sat inside, more often than not, is purely artificial. The walls that surround you are artificial. The flavors that go into your foods are artificial. And we have become so accustomed to all things artificial that when somebody shows us the real article, the real deal, we refuse to accept it. Yeah. You know, honestly, this is the truth. I took my kids recently to Pakistan, and we were able to have incredibly fresh milk. And my children all said, "Oh, we don't want this milk, it tastes odd." I said, "Well, what do you mean? This is as real as milk you will get. You're not going to get it any fresher than it having come from the udders, and it's still warm." You know, this is how real I'm talking about. But because we're so used to having artificial, suddenly the real seems unusual. Yeah. The real starts to seem unfamiliar to you. You know, this is the problem. It's not that my kids have something against real, but they've just not had enough exposure to real foods. And even the fruits we get, you know, they're adapted, and we're eating perfect apples, and you're eating perfect pears, and eating perfect peaches. I once went with a friend, and we were in Pakistan, and we were looking at oranges, and some of them were square, and he was laughing at them, and he said, "Look, they're almost square oranges." I said, "Yeah, they are square oranges, but this is what real oranges look like." You know, not every orange comes out perfectly circular and has just the right taste. You know, the real danger is that all of this artificialness enters into our own lives. It in fact enters into our deen. It enters into our religion. So when we say think of something religious, or if I asked you to picture or imagine somebody religious, immediately you think of somebody who wears a jubbah. You know, immediately we're looking for the shawl around the head or on the shoulders. Immediately we're looking for certain things. And that's not always an inner reality. I'll tell you, me and Hafsa will tell you, we met some people in our lives who we would consider to be from amongst the awliya. But if we showed you a picture, you wouldn't believe that they were awliya. Because you'd say, "We don't recognize it." But they're wearing suits though, they're wearing ties. And we'll say, "But some of them actually come wearing suits, wearing ties." You know, this is because we've lost the sense of, you know, when we look at when I think of you, ask of you to think of a sheikh or a pir. You know, everybody, you want your sheikhs, you want your shuyukh to levitate in the air, don't you? You want your sheikh to be able to tap you twice and say, "Go, cancer be gone, and your cancers be cured." You know, this is what you want. And actually, let me bring you to the harsh reality. Real life is actually quite boring, right? And in real life, most people don't levitate. In normal day-to-day life, they won't just cure you with the tap. The Prophet ﷺ said about illnesses, "Tadawu," you should seek out cures. فَمَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ دَاءً إِلَّا جَعَلَ لَهُ دَوَاءً. Allah Ta'ala hasn't created an illness except that He's created a cure for it. So He's actually saying, go and research, go and do some studies. So when we come into this, and we're looking at spiritual science, what we all really want, what we want is the sense of felicity, isn't it? We all want happiness. What we want is a spiritual ascent. And that's really what we're after. What we want is a divine connection with the one who is the most divine. You want it with Al-Quddus. You know, that's who you want the relationship with. But we always, we want to start at the, we always want to start at the higher realm. So we want to start at the level of angels and work our way up from there, where you can start removing the veils. Your reality actually starts right down here on earth. And this is what the talk is about actually today. Because everything that is sacred is always covered or it is concealed. This, you can have a look at the Kaaba. It's got a kiswa on it, it's got a ghilaf on it, because it's sacred. Women are sacred, so they are covered. Allah Almighty Himself is the sacred one. He's the sacred one. And so Allah Ta'ala is hidden and concealed from you. And what you have to go through is a process of kashf. You have to rediscover Allah Almighty. Is it not true that Allah Almighty said, "Kuntu kanzan makhfiyan fa ahbabtu an u'raf"? I was an undiscovered, undisclosed treasure, and I loved the idea of being discovered. So I created you. So He wanted to be discovered. So this is, your spiritual journey is this. So then how does He communicate? He communicates through what we declare as Kalamullah, the speech of Allah Ta'ala. That speech, just so that humans can understand it. Remember, Allah Ta'ala does not need any words to be able to deliver His message. He does not need any communications to deliver His message. Sometimes the Prophet ﷺ said, at times the heaviest revelation that I would receive, the hardest revelation that I would receive to take in, was the ringing of a bell. So there was actually no words in it. I would hear the ringing of a bell, but in my heart this would materialize as words of revelation. Allah Ta'ala doesn't need words. But His kalam is then wrapped, it is enshrouded in words. And this, this is so important, because the most things which are sometimes unremarkable are the most remarkable. And the things that you deem to be the most remarkable are often the least remarkable. We've got our world misunderstood. And I'm telling you that we have this bias because we're used to living in a world which is artificial, largely artificial. So we've built up our understandings around it. So in this kalam, Allah Ta'ala says, I can show you the way back to me. I will bring you all back to me. But He does so in a very, very particular way. You see, Allah Ta'ala in His revelations has granted to us signs. And this is really important for me, that the word ayah. The word ayah doesn't mean evidence. That is burhan. Allah Ta'ala says in the verses of the Quran, "Qul hatu burhanakum," bring forward your evidences. It's hujjah, or it's daleel, but it's certainly not ayah. Ayah just means a sign. That's all it means. What the verses of the Quran are stimuli. They're just supposed to stimulate your thinking. And when that thinking is stimulated, and you're able to apply it to your living world, automatically you will come to recognize Allah Ta'ala. This is important. This is really important, because this means every single human being inherently believes in Allah Ta'ala. He just forgets that he believes. And so Allah Ta'ala doesn't feel the need to prove to him that He exists. He only reminds him. He stimulates a thought and He says, oh, remember this? Oh, remember how this happened? And then he's supposed to use that and say, yes, of course, this is my Lord. This is my Lord. And this is what the Quran does for you.